economics, history, family, social issues, education, religion, government, or national security. Brannon brings the issues of the day into clear focus through the lens of a Judeo-Christian worldview. And now, here is your host, Brannon Howse.
And welcome to the broadcast. On this Friday night, July 10th, 2026, we have a lot of big news tonight, folks. We'll get into it with our guest tonight, Patrick Wood, Courtenay Turner, and J.B. Hixson's going to join us. He's got a brand new book out. Fade to Black is the name of the new book. Here it is right here. Fade to Black by J.B. Hixson. He's my first guest up tonight. And then Courtenay Turner and Patrick Wood, breaking news tonight. Stablecoin issuer Circle just got the green light to operate as a bank. You're going to find out why that's so important. Got a brand new article out today over at Worldview Times. The digital dollar is almost here. I'm going to talk about the fact that there are, and most of you will not have known this. This is new news. I called someone today who's really up on what goes on, and they did not know this. I know this is a story most people do not know about, and that is right now, as of June 30th, a few days ago, 140 major companies launched a brand new digital dollar called OpenUSD. I mean, this is big companies: Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Stripe, BlackRock, Coinbase, Google, Spotify, and others. This is showing us, folks, we're moving to a new system fast. The government also, by July 18th, has got to come up with the rules for regulating cryptocurrency, stable coins, if you will. They got to have these rules nailed down by July 18th. That's just another 8 days from now. So there you go. This is a big deal. We're going to get into all this tonight, what it really all means. Patrick Wood, Courtenay Turner, first J.B. Hixson. Then we're going to get into some of this with Michael Weiner tonight. I also have made a lot of graphics this morning. Up early, I made a lot of graphics because I want to show you what it is they're doing to our U.S. dollar. I think most of you know what they're doing to our U.S. dollar, but I want to explain it to you because I love doing things with graphics, visual, because it really drives home. What has happened to the U.S. dollar? $20,000 in 1963. Someone gave you $20,000 in 1963. Whatever it is you could buy, today you'd have to have $215,825 to buy the same things that you were able to buy for $20,000 back in 1963. I'm also going to show you that if you'd put $20,000 in gold, not that you could have bought gold in 1963, you weren't able to legally buy gold until December 31st, 1974. That's when Ford allowed us to do that with some laws. But if you could have put $20,000 into gold in 1963, and you just set on that $20,000 in gold in 1963, today that would be worth $2,354,000. I got some great graphics to show you tonight. And what I'm trying to show you is the death of the dollar. We've lost 90% of the purchasing power of the U.S. dollar since 1963 alone. And they know it. The central banks know it. That's why they're buying up gold like crazy. And they're about to go to cryptocurrency, stable coins, etc. And they're going to back a percentage of it on gold. Something's wrong with our computer tonight, isn't it, Logan? But what I also want to talk about tonight is getting rid of a lot of the banks. I think the big banks are about to get rid of a lot of the little banks, and you're only going to have a few big banks left. Let's talk about that. How is it they're going to get rid of these little banks? How is it that depositors are going to take their money out of these banks? How is the cryptocurrency, the meme coins, the stable coins, by the way, they have to be backed by treasuries. How are they going to help bring the deposits out of those banks? And that will, of course, mean a cash problem, liquidity problem, a bottom line problem, a collapse for some of those banks. How is this all being done? What will it lead to? A very intense conversation, a very interesting conversation tonight we're going to get into with Patrick Wood, Courtenay Turner, and Michael Weiner. J.B. Hixson is up first. Before we do that, Logan, I saw a video today that came across my screen on X. If I can find it real quick. Here is a video from 30 years ago, Logan. 30 years ago. You know, Logan hears me talk about the good old days. When I was growing up, I would hear my parents talk about the good old days. That would be the 1950s and 60s, early 60s. And now my kids hear me talk about the good old days. That'd be the 1970s and 80s. Well, here we go. This would be the early 90s or mid 90s. But 30 years ago, here's an ad that popped up on X today. I thought, I know what that culture was all about. You don't see people dressing and acting in the way of decorum that they used to. It's amazing the way people used to dress. I mean, just to get on an airplane, right? Just to go out to dinner, just to go shopping on Saturday, the family would get dressed up, right? And today, people by and large are just so sloppy. I dress like this, folks, pretty much wherever I go. Very common. I don't get out much because I don't want to get out much. I come home and I'm like, why did I leave? But when I do go out, I don't go out much, but when I do go out, sounds like a commercial, doesn't it? But I'm wearing what I'm wearing, right? And when I walk into places, it's crazy the way people look at you. And I'm in the Mid-South where people generally, historically, dressed really sharp and nice. They do on Sundays, but not like they used to. People here in the Mid-South used to dress up a lot everywhere. Just the culture here is just sliding down just like everywhere else. But I walk into places with this suit on and a vest and a tie, and my wife says, everyone is looking at you in here because they don't see someone in a three-piece suit very often. And we did that the other night. We went somewhere and people all looked at like, why is this guy wearing a three-piece suit? Who does that? And I've had people say to me, what do you do for a living? I've had other people say, do you dress like that every day? And they're like, and I'm like, yeah, why? I'm like, well, I'm on TV and blah, blah, blah. But I dress like this even when I'm not on television. When I go out, I generally am wearing, I may not wear a sport coat, but I'm wearing the dress shirt and vest. And the point I'm trying to make is I like dressing nice. And a lot of you probably like dressing nice. Michael Reagan, Ronald Reagan's son, told me years ago that his father gave him a line that he remembered. And that is, clothes make the man. That's what President Reagan told his son, Michael Reagan. Clothes make the man. And remember, look how Reagan always looked. Man, he looked sharp, didn't he? He knew how to dress, right? And how to wear the right suits. All of that to say is there's a culture in America that used to be here. And many of you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I want to show you this, Logan, because this is about 30, 35 years ago. This was even reflected in our TV commercials. You ready for this, Logan? Here we go. Is there no audio? No audio with it? All right, that's fine. Okay, just look at the people. My wife and I, you can actually go on YouTube. You can go on YouTube and you can type in commercials 1980. It's a Gillette commercial here. You could go 1980s commercials. And my wife and I have had the best time watching these 1980 commercials. And she keeps saying to me, the people were just better looking, better dressed, healthier looking. I guess we weren't eating all that nasty processed food, chemicals in all of our food. And it's just, I don't know, it's something we started doing about a month ago, was watching commercials from the 1980s. And then we got into watching commercials from the 1970s. Man, just the way people look and dress has really changed. Let's go back to that. That was just it. That was, and any of you watching know the young kids today think, yeah, he just remembers it better than it was. No, there was a totally different culture. And it even showed up in the way they dressed. And their overall appearance, their athletic appearance, their healthy appearance. A lot has changed. And some of it, frankly, a lot of young people today can't help it because of the vaccines, the food, the preservatives, the chemicals. So some of it's not people's fault today, the way they struggle with different things. It's sad what's happened to a lot of people today. They had no choice in it, a lot of it. But anyway, I just saw that. It made me a little nostalgic for the way things used to be, the way people used to dress and used to conduct themselves. You didn't used to walk into the office supply store or a restaurant on a Saturday night and people stare because you're overdressed. And that's the look we get a lot of the times. We're overdressed. I'm like, this used to be the way everybody dressed, particularly if you were just coming off work. Not now. Not now. It's very rare that I walk into a room at the average, store or restaurant, even church. And there's not a lot of people that are wearing three-piece suits anymore. That's fine. They can do what they want. Everybody can do what they want. That's fine. I'm staying this way. But I thought when I saw that commercial, I'm like, yeah, that's a part of my culture. I get that. I get that culture, but it's gone, unfortunately. All right, we got big news. We're going to have available by later tonight. So I would say Saturday morning. By Saturday morning, you can go to worldviewtube.com/vault. Watch the 2-hour Part 3 documentary, Brainwashed America Part 3. Brainwashed America Part 3. It's about 2 hours. It's going to be available to you later tonight by Saturday morning. But you must be a Vault member. worldviewtube.com/vault. worldviewtube.com/vault. Make sure you are also going, folks, to Worldview. Type it right, House. worldviewtube.com/leadership. A lot of you are joining. Our goal is to train hundreds of you to be Bible teachers, biblical worldview teachers, and instructors. Please go to worldviewtube.com/leadership. You can take this course. It's a 2-year course for as little as $99 a month. You pay all up front, you'll save close to $400. It's a 2-year course. The instructors include myself, Dr. Andy Woods, Ron Carlson, Norm Geisler, Josh McDowell, Henry Morris III, John Ankerberg. It's amazing. And when you're done, you're going to be able to download what really will be, I think, years worth of PowerPoint, because just my Revelation series is 53 lessons you can turn around and teach. So if you just did one lesson a week, that's a year and 1 week worth right there. So we're not only teaching you and instructing you and training you, we're going to equip you. We're going to resource you. So you get to download all that. We're also going to send you a beautiful, not a cheap paper certificate diploma. It's a very nicely printed, high-end certificate diploma worthy of framing that you are a graduate of the Worldview Weekend Institute training program. So go ahead and join. Get started, folks. We got people joining pretty much every day now. Wonderful. We want to train hundreds of you to be biblical worldview, Bible teachers, prophecy teachers. Start a home church. We need Christian leaders teaching, folks. That's part of the Great Commission, evangelism and then discipleship. So please consider joining now, worldviewtube.com/leadership. Now, don't forget about our sponsors, worldviewtube.com/sponsors, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. One of the sponsors, of course, is none other than Worldview Talk. Worldview Talk. And I'm going to really highlight that because here we are in July. Hard to believe I have to say this, but for a lot of folks, next month starts school. And you want to send the kiddies and the grandkids, if they go to a school, if they go to a Christian school, I guess some of them go to the public schools too, but if they go to school, it'd be nice to send them back to school or college, the university, with a bulletproof backpack in today's crazy world. And these backpacks, folks, are not small. They're pretty big backpacks, so they carry a lot, but they're also able to be put in front of you and to shield you in your body mass area with a bulletproof backpack. These make great gifts for the kids and the grandkids because, again, we're sadly living in a dangerous world. You also can get your satellite phones, your solar generators. You can get your clothing that knocks down the EMF. So you can get a maternity shield. Logan, you need a maternity shield? No, the answer is no, you don't need one. He said yes. No, you do not need one. That's not something you want to have your son tell you, right? Dad, I need a maternity shield. Okay, what? But there are weirdos out there, aren't there, Logan? Yes, there are. But if you do know of a lady that needs a maternity shield because you don't want the baby getting EMF, we have them. And of course, we got so many other things, including the EMF barrier wrist for your Apple Watch if you're wearing one of those. All these things available at Worldview Talk, I should say. Worldview Talk, worldviewtalk.com or worldviewtube.com/sponsors get you there. Water purifiers, Numi, Gatatana, Bella Grace, you know it all, folks. And check it all out. We need your sponsorship. Worldview, the melissaprotein.com. I had 7 of them today. 7 protein tablets I took today. And I'm telling you, folks, it really does take away your appetite. You feel full because you're getting the protein. You're burning fat. This is 100% plant-based. Maintain your muscle mass. rapid absorption, 0 calories. Check it out. Melissa got me on these. She's been on them for 4 months, and she, of course, testified here on the air to the benefits she's receiving. And now I'm on them. And I'll just tell you, after being on about 3 days, it's amazing how full you feel during the day. But I'm also having more energy. Yesterday, I woke up at like 5:45. I was like, wide awake. I'm like, why am I up at 5:45? I took those protein tablets the day before, and Melissa does the same thing. And so anyway, I got more energy. I'm not hungry. I don't have the munchies, which again is part of the key to losing weight, is just to cut out the munchies, right? And just eat a normal meal, and don't, be careful about the calories. It's just a numbers game, right? Calories, counting calories. So there you go. I'm on melissaprotein.com now. You can check it all out right there. All of our sponsors, worldviewtube.com/sponsors, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Join me now is JB Hixson. He has a brand new book out, entitled Fade to Black, Rise of Global Tyranny. Let me just read to you. Oh, wow. The table of contents, folks, is so rich. The gaslighting of America, the JFK assassination files, the Jeffrey Epstein files, the 2022 Dobbs decision. That's just chapter 2 right there. Chapter 3, the spirit of power, the freedom is as cold as ice, artificial intelligentsia, and so much more. Then it goes on to secret pastors conclave in Tennessee. Well, that just took place. So this book is like right to the cutting edge. This is about UFO disclosure coming in 2026, ? By the way, welcome to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us, JB.
Hey, my pleasure. Yeah, that book, we were literally adding paragraphs to it after we'd already submitted the final draft because stuff was happening so fast. So it's definitely came out June 4th, and it's definitely very cutting edge info.
Yeah, we know what that's like, don't we, Logan? Adding stuff up to the very last minute. Yeah, we know what that's about, don't we, Dolly? Okay, so I saw some guy the other day is running around claiming that 2027, what they're really preparing us for is the aliens are going to show up in 2027. Have you heard that? Have you heard this? Some guy's going around giving these interviews claiming he's a government insider and he's got information that all this is about preparing the population for us to be contacted by extraterrestrials by 2027. Like, well, it isn't going to be ET. It might be demons, but it's not going to be ET.
Yeah. No doubt. I trace in that chapter on disclosure, I trace a lot of the propaganda and key dates going back to Thanksgiving of last year with Dan Farrah's Age of Disclosure documentary, and then Donald Trump's, document dumps, and then several key events in politics and in the mainstream news. To me, it's all just preparing the stage for the great deception after the rapture. I feel like, Satan's going to have some excuse for the sudden disappearance of millions of Christians, and alien abduction seems to be sort of the order of the day. It's everywhere. It's in Hollywood. It's on the news. It's everywhere you look.
Indeed, it is. Tonight at Worldview, I'll do with it later, but I've got an article over at worldviewtimes.com that I think fits nicely with our little conversation we're having here. Worldviewtimes.com. Go over there, folks, and here it is. The digital dollar is almost here, and what it means for you. And this is, I talked to someone today who's very much in the know. And I said, and I usually call them to give me information. I said, hey, did you hear about this? And I read this paragraph from this article I posted today. On June 30th, just a few days ago, a group of more than 140 major companies launched a brand new digital dollar called OpenUSD. This was not a handful of tech startups. The list includes Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Stripe, BlackRock, Coinbase, Google, and Shopify. When companies that run the world's payment systems and manage trillions of dollars all line up buying the same product on the same day, that's not an experiment. That's a takeover of the plumbing. And then, of course, we have the new federal rules. Genius Act is passed, and by July 18th, just again, another, 10 days from now, they need to finalize the rules that will decide which companies are allowed to issue these digital dollars and under what conditions. So in other words, digital dollars are being pulled out of the shadows and into the official regulated financial system, just in time for the dollar to collapse.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I mean, the whole book that I just came out with, Fade to Black: Rise of Global Tyranny, is about how the stage is being set for that full spectrum planetary takeover that will reach its apex after the rapture during the 70th week of Daniel, when the Antichrist rules the world. He's a tyrant. And, you know, tyrants, Brandon, are nothing new. World history has seen many tyrants that have taken over parts of the world, even multiple continents in a couple of cases. But no tyrant has ever ruled the entire globe. But that's coming. If you believe the Bible, we know that the Antichrist and his sidekick, the false prophet, are going to preside over a planetary control grid and the whole mark of the beast system. And so the premise of the book is from 1 John 4:3, where we learn that the spirit of the Antichrist is already at work in the world. And if that's the case, then we ought to see multiple evidences of the stage being set. And so I just walk through everything from the technocracy to AI to the spirit of phenomena with the whole UFO and alien stuff, the spirit of pretense and deception. You mentioned some of those sections from that chapter on the gaslighting of America. And all of it points to one thing, Brandon, that we're getting close to the final phase of God's plan of the ages that will usher in ultimately the kingdom. When Jesus Christ comes back at the second coming, we'll be coming back with him, the bride of Christ, and he inaugurates the kingdom. And so, it's an exciting time, but it's also a time to pay attention, be prepared. From your neck of the woods there, who was it? The guy in Memphis? I'm having a brain freeze.
Adrian Rogers.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Adrian Rogers. I cite that oft-quoted great statement of his that, yes, the world is growing dark, but it's growing gloriously dark. And so for believers, it's an exciting time to be alive.
Indeed. You know, we've got the seal judgments, the bowl judgments, the trumpet judgments. And when you read those, and we go through those in the book of Revelation, and then you start seeing the things that are happening today, which I think is, and you and I both agree, is the stage setting. It seems like some of these things, although we know they are from God, some of them, of course, man seems to be participating in his behavior to accelerate or set the stage for those things, like starvation, hyperinflation, the demonic activity on the planet by engaging with demons, as people will do today, thinking they're engaging spirit or master guides. The pushing of drugs and active measures of altered states of consciousness. Now we're into mushrooms and psychedelics and different things. It's almost, again, like man in some ways has set up rebellion against God in these behaviors, which they have. And God says, oh, you want to go down this road you've started? Here, let me advance that for you a little bit. Here you go. You want to commune with demons, do you? Here you go. And the abyss is open and demons come flooding out. And as I look at your book, chapter 9, If We're Still Here, you have the downfall of America on page 141, terrorist attacks, assassinations, economic collapse, global war and a nuclear attack, natural disasters, rogue agents going off script, civil unrest and or martial law. And then this one, folks, food and supply shortages. On radio today, I was talking about an article that I mentioned in my Worldview Report newscast tonight, and I have it over at worldviewreport.com, and here it is. Can Israel help prevent a Hormuz 2.0 in the Taiwan Strait? A Navy blockade of Taiwan would cripple the global electronics industry. And it goes into the fact that today, Taiwan accounts for over 90% of the world's advanced logic chip production. Now, that means a big deal for our power grid, computers, water filtration systems, the pumping of water. It's as though, again, America has put themselves in a situation to be so easily taken down. But then I talked earlier today on the radio show with Dr. Woods about Turkey. Here, their foreign minister says, Israel has become a burden humanity can't bear. Sounds like right out of the book of Zechariah chapter 12. And it shall happen in that day that I will make Jerusalem a very heavy stone for all people. All who would heave it away surely will be cut in pieces. Dr. Woods and I were talking about, you lift a heavy stone, something that's too heavy, you'll get a hernia. And I said, a hernia is a ripping. It's an internal ripping. It's an internal wound. America seems to be ripping internally. We have internal conflict, internal divisions. There is an internal ripping of the fabric of our society. And you have to wonder if it isn't tied to the way we're treating Israel. We're going to maybe give F-35s to Turkey. We're praising the leader of Turkey. We're cursing Benjamin Netanyahu. We're telling him what they can and cannot do with Gaza. We're telling him what they can and cannot do with Judea and Samaria. This seems like Joel 3, verse 2. God says, I'm mad at you for dividing my land. That, to me, seems to set up all those things that you're mentioning right here, right? Including food supply problems. How are you going to produce food, and how are you going to get fertilizer if your Strait of Hormuz is shut down? Now you have a blockade around Taiwan for chips. How are your tractors going to run? How is your food processing going to run? How is your fuel system going to run? How is your trucking going to run? How is all of this going to happen? And then you add in the issue of fertilizers. This seems like the perfect scenario. And maybe, again, man did this. You want to curse Israel, people? All right, let me tell you. Here's what's going to happen. And the article talks about Israel maybe coming to our defense and helping with some of their unmanned navy, or maybe getting some chips from them as they advance their technology. Isn't it interesting, all the people cursing Israel in America right now? And Israel could be the one that could save us. But frankly, I don't know why Israel would at this point.
Yeah, it's really the last 2 to 3 years, which is the focus of the book. I mean, it's only the last 2 or 3 years have brought unprecedented scenarios and situations and geopolitical arrangements that I really never thought I'd see in my lifetime. It really is an interesting time to be alive, especially as an American. But, you talked about what America is doing relative to Israel. I mean, we're celebrating a jihadist ISIS leader in Syria. We're praising the leaders of Iran and helping to reorganize them and give them their money back and all of that. All of this to me speaks volumes as to where we are in God's plan of the ages. Now, I'm not a date setter. You're not either. But Jesus does warn that we should look for the signs of the times, and that's all we're doing here. We're saying, what is it going to be like after the rapture, during the reign of the Antichrist, when he's the world tyrant in preparation for the final battle of Armageddon? And are we getting close to things that will be true when that happens? And so I walk through in Fade to Black 7 predominant characteristics of the beast system, and I evaluate each of them based on current events and say, yeah, it's a resounding yes, we're getting close. And then in that last chapter that you just referenced, I talk about, if we're still here, say 5 years from now, and honestly, my personal opinion is I don't see how we could be. I mean, I think we're that close, but who knows? God's the ultimate arbiter of the timetable, so we'll leave that up to him, obviously. But if we are still here, I say, here's my speculation, my studied opinion based on everything we just talked about in the previous chapters, what could happen, and how do things unfold, and what should you be thinking about, should you be anticipating? And certainly food shortages is a huge part of that. And I'd like to comment on your very astute observation that God often uses man's own devices to bring judgment. I mean, this is clearly the case during the tribulation with the seal, trumpet, and bowl judgments, as you pointed out. But it's also true throughout history. Isn't it interesting that God, for example, has used enemy nations of Israel, like Babylon, Assyria, Persia, Greece, and so forth, to discipline his chosen nation Israel because of their unbelief or their disobedience. And yet then he turns right around and judges those enemy nations for coming against Israel. I mean, it's amazing amazing. The sovereign God is sometimes it's hard to for our minds to get around his sovereignty. Romans 11, Paul talks about that. Who has known the mind of the Lord, right? But yeah, regardless of how it happens, the Bible lays it out, and you've covered it well in your multi-volume Revelation commentary. What's going to happen? And in my book, Fade to Black, I just sort of lay out how the stage is being set for that. Folks, by the way, can go to fadetoblackbook.com. We set up a landing page there, fadetoblackbook.com for more information.
Well, let me go there.
Fadetoblackbook.com.
Book.com. And it's popping up. There you go.
Yep. We've got a 1 minute, sort of trailer that really sets the tone. The tagline for the book, by the way, is, the movie hasn't really ended. It's just getting started. So obviously, fade to black, I don't have to tell you, Brandon, as a media guy, is a media term. At the end of the movie, the screen fades to black and then the credits roll. And so we picked up on that title. My wife actually came up with that title to just say, yeah, look, things are kind of winding down in the church age, but it's just getting started in terms of God's prophetic plan of the ages. And so, yeah, Fade to Black, Rise of a Global Tyranny is the name of the book.
Excellent. You have a little trailer for it, you said?
Yeah, there's a 1 minute trailer. It should be on that page.
Let's go to it, Logan. Here we go. Let's go to this. There you go. Fade to Black Book. Fadetoblackbook.com. You, when you talk about food shortages here, you write this. History has shown when people lose everything and have nothing left to lose, they lose it. Now, that's Gerald Celente. I didn't know he'd said that last part. They lose it. We've quoted that one a lot. When people have nothing left to lose, they have nothing left to lose, meaning they'll come get your stuff. They'll attack you. I'll often say, I even said to my wife not too long ago, I pointed to some of the neighbors that were out in our neighborhood. I didn't know who they were, but they were gathered at something in the neighborhood, and we drove by. I said, look at all those nice people. I said, when it hits the fan and they've gone without food and water for 2-3 weeks, those people won't be so neighborly.
They'll be dumpster diving within,
they'll be trying to get your stuff. They'll be noticing who's got power and whatnot. And but anyway, when they lose everything, they have nothing left to lose, and then they lose it. You say we all have watched people dumpster diving for food when their favorite Walmart closed for a few days. By the way, I have video footage in one of my documentaries of middle class people in Venezuela dumpster diving during hyperinflation, literally eating garbage, cake, and food out of the back of a garbage truck. And they're talking. Logan, can we play that, by the way? Do you have that? The video footage of the guys in Venezuela eating out of a garbage truck? See if you can find it. There's some language in there because they're cursing the president at the time. But they're all wearing middle-class clothes. These were people that at one time were middle class. Hyperinflation now has them dumpster diving, literally eating out of the back of a garbage truck. Going without food and supplies for a week or two after a hurricane is one thing. Experiencing real hunger is another. Again, we're spoiled. A shortage of food and supplies is another scenario that could compound any of the other discussed above. This is why you write, I recommend having a preparedness stash on hand. Twice the book of Proverbs tells us to be prepared. Proverbs 22, verse 3, Proverbs 27, verse 12. Preparing is not an indication of lack of faith. Not preparing, on the other hand, is an indication of stupidity. That's a very good line you came up with there. And not too long ago, the power went out, and I know a guy that had, I'd never heard of this till then. He had electric toilets. Have you ever heard of electric toilets? I've never heard of electric toilets. And I'm like, why would anyone have an electric toilet? And they're like, so the power, the water flushes heavier and faster, you know? Well, the power went out for 3 days. The dude couldn't flush his toilets, even if he went and got a 10-gallon bucket of water, brought it to the house and poured water in the back behind the stool, and then flushed the toilet. It wouldn't flush. Neighbors were doing that. They were going to a lake or a pond and getting water, putting it in the back of the toilet, and then they could flush the toilet. So they were able to use the toilets. He couldn't. He had an electric toilet. So he was out of luck. And I'm like, you know, and the dude, I'm thinking to myself, you're not real bright, are you? You're not a real bright fella. Did you not think through, if the power goes out, I'm not going to be able to flush the pooper? But this is how people have not thought through things. They have not thought through things at all. And this is why I tell our audience, you know, if you have to, turn all the power in your house off for 2 days and tell the family we're going to do a test. And then every time we run into a problem, let's figure out what will we do if we didn't have power, and then go find the solution.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, no, it's always wise to prepare. I mean, you know, you don't really, if you don't prepare, then when it happens, you're kind of flying blind. I mean, that's why they tell us, for example, twice a year when we roll our clocks back or forward, we check our smoke detectors, right? You don't want to find out when you smell smoke for the first time when it's too late that your smoke detector's not working. So the same thing is true in general, especially now. I mean, the economy, all of these things that we talk about in there, preparedness is key. Not because we're scared. We never should be scared, only prepared. But, you know, God has us here for a reason. And we don't want, because of our own lack of preparedness, to short-live our time on this earth. We're here to share the gospel, to make a difference with others, that redeeming the time, the urgency of the hour, spreading the good news about salvation in Christ. It's all part of God's plan. But I think so many Christians are asleep at the wheel. One other thing that I want to point out that's really important to me, and I know it is to you as well in this book, is the chapter 6 on persecution. I have an important section in there called Biblical Zionism versus Political Zionism, and especially with all this tension right now centered around Israel and the apparent thing that America seems to be turning its back on Israel for the first time. Who knows? I think people need to understand the nuances there. What does the Bible say about God's promises for Israel? And how does that relate to the miracle of the rebirth of Israel as a nation in 1948? And yet there is sort of a dark side to the political Zionist movement that is unrelated to biblical Christianity, unrelated to the Abrahamic promise. And so, yeah, I think that's an important section that I would call people's attention to. So much more in the book, but I wanted to mention that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, you talk about all these things that they walk among us on page 68. All these things that people have said they have seen: Dogman, Thunderbird, Mothman, Slender Man, Black-Eyed Kids, River Monsters, Skinwalkers, Shapeshifters. You think some of these things obviously are people's imaginations, probably, or light or something else that was dancing in the trees and the moon. But some of these people, I think, are encountering demons, don't you?
No question. Yeah, no, you make a great point. Obviously, there are hoaxers out there. Obviously, there are natural explanations for things that people see. Some of it is psychological. If you're on drugs or you're messed up, you may see things that don't exist as hallucinations. But there's no question that there's a demonic presence that is burgeoning. I mean, it is increasing. We're seeing it in the skies. We're seeing it in the seas. We're seeing it in the forests. We live in the Colorado mountains. We see all kinds of crazy things. My dog dog. I have a 10-year-old lab that's just amazing. Juno is her name. I love her. And she'll go crazy certain nights, and we can't figure it out. Now, we've caught some things on our game camera from time to time, and it could be a mountain lion or something off that we can't see. But there are times when there's no rational explanation for her to get antsy and to fidget and bark and run around. And so I just feel like, closer we get to the rapture, the more of an increase of this spiritual battle in the unseen realm that we're going to see.
I 100% agree. Logan, did you say the Pentagon has just released something? Is that it right here? Yep. Here we go, guys. Here we go. New Pentagon footage out tonight. Here we go. Now, that looks very similar to some of the other stuff we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that's obviously probably some bright light, which is why it's giving that star look or configuration. There you go. Look at that. This has just been released by the Pentagon tonight.
Yeah, we're seeing it. I mean, it's all around us, and reputable people are saying it too. It's not all some big made up hoax. I mean, this is something's going on in there. Remember, the battle, Brandon, started in the heavenlies when Satan's coup attempt in heaven, and so it makes sense that it's going to play out both on earth and in the heavenly realm. And certainly, the Book of Revelation describes all kinds of things happening in the celestial realm.
Mm-hmm. Now, is that over water? I can't tell. That's something. All right. So TMZ's opened an office in D.C., by the way, which I find very interesting. We also have a video we mentioned a while ago, Venezuela. I bet this is going to be in Spanish. I think this is from News 10 Caracas in Venezuela. Listen to this.
Drags on.
No, it's English, so we got English. That's good. Here we go.
Venezuelans are slipping into poverty and struggling to feed their families.
As Local 10 News reporter Cody Weddle shows us, there is one drastic measure many families are taking just to put food on the table.
For many Venezuelans who can't find food at affordable prices, they have little option but to turn to places like this, the city's trash, to feed their families. For Jefferson Jose Vielma and his family, the hunt begins around 6 in the evening, the time most supermarkets take out their trash. Since I don't have a job, what I do is I go through the trash at the supermarket or from these apartments to search for anything we can eat. After losing his job at a local restaurant a year ago, he has struggled to find work. Now he relies on the local trash dumps to look for dinner for him, his wife, and his 1-year-old son. When people look at me, I feel embarrassed. People come up to me to give me something when they see what I'm doing, and I'm so embarrassed. His family story, like that of so many others in Venezuela, formerly from the middle class. People picking through the trash has become an increasingly common sight in Caracas. Facing triple-digit inflation and food shortages, they have turned to the garbage to put food on the table. People criticize, but they don't know what you're going through. They don't know what we feel. They should understand. According to a recent study by several universities, the economic crisis here has driven poverty rates to 81%. In 2016, nearly 3/4 of the population lost around 19 pounds. The alarming statistics from the survey go on. When we ask people how many times a day they eat, 32% say that they eat only 2 times a day or less. In poor families, that number is 50%. As with most cities, dumpster diving has always existed here, but it has undoubtedly become more common among the middle class over the past few years as a result of the economic crisis.
Wow, and I've not seen that till right now. It's interesting they mentioned middle class twice, and that's exactly what we were saying before we saw the clip, because our documentary showed it years ago. It was the middle class that was eating out of the dumpsters and garbage. Oh, wow. And Americans think that kind of thing can't happen here. But again, I was just watching some news reports of people, experts, talking about the fact that the Strait of Hormuz is staying closed this long. Now, if they want to shut down, there's another There's another port or another strait not too far from there. It's got a long name. I can't remember it now. But if they were to close that down, I mean, right, the enemies of America have us in a bad spot, but Americans have no idea. Now we've got 300 drones from Russia and Iran that have gone to Cuba. Now, we reported on this in May. I don't know if you heard this or not. And when we reported on it, almost nobody, made much of an issue of it. Like, okay. It's almost like we become desensitized. The Cuban Missile Crisis, that was headlines. The president addressed the nation. The nation stopped the headlines on the paper, right? The president was convening massive emergency meetings. And now we have what is really the equivalent of a Cuban Missile Crisis. And the Americans are like, ho hum. They don't seem to get it, most people. But look at this headline. Cuba's 300 drone arsenal near U.S. coastal sparks fear of Iran-Russia strike. New network just 145 kilometers from America. So 90 miles off the coast of Florida is Cuba. And these are, again, Russian and Iranian-made drones, and they supposedly have 300 of these. These, by the way, they move at a very fast pace, and their nose, the nose of them, as you can see there, they can put nuclear weapons or explosives in there. Can you imagine? And again, maybe this is why President Trump is so concerned and talking about his life being at risk. I mean, he spends a lot of time in Miami and in southern Florida, Mar-a-Lago, West Palm Beach. Again, Americans have to understand how vulnerable we are, and I don't think they do. But the more that we tear at Israel, the more we cause them, the more we try to lift them, if you will, to move them off their place, the more America is going to experience the hernia or the internal ripping and consequences. You want to speak to all this?
Yeah, for sure. As far as America, I think we are woefully unprepared and really blinded. If you stop and think about it, we're celebrating our 250th anniversary this year as a nation. And I did the math. That means that the United States of America has been in existence less than 1/2% of all of human history. So yet, we kind of have this American exceptionalism mindset where we're all that. And we are. Yeah, look, in a lot of ways, especially from a Judeo-Christian perspective, God's fingerprints are all over this country. We've done more to advance the gospel than any nation in history, but we've also abandoned the Lord as a nation over the last 100 years. A lot of that's by design, going back to the Luciferian elite that took over every aspect of this country: finance, education, the economy, medicine, pharmaceutical, farming, you name it. But a lot of it is just our own depravity. We've just become complacent, abortion, LGBTQ, and then now, to me, this is the tipping point when we turn against Israel. And look, I get that Israel, the modern state of Israel, is not there in belief, but there have been plenty of times when Israel has been in their rich history prior to the modern age in unbelief, and yet God still held nations accountable if they tried to harm Israel. And so we believe in the promises of God for national Israel. Why would we want to turn our backs on them? We should be praying for them. We should be sharing the gospel with them. We should be encouraging them to accept their Messiah, not giving weapons to their worst enemies and encouraging them to destroy them. So I feel like this is a real turning point. And yeah, America is woefully unprepared. I did think it's interesting the latest assassination attempt on Trump. I don't know if there's ever been a president, at least that we know about, with more known attempts to take his life. And I did a prophecy update recently on NBW where I talked about how China has these AI-powered grenade drones that, the dual rotor coax design, they can carry up to 3 grenades, and they have their own neural processing unit that once you set them on a course, you can't control them. They make the decision of when to drop the grenade and what to do next, and they're totally autonomous. And it's amazing how fast we've gotten to this point. I can remember in a book, 2 or 3 books ago of mine, I talked about how they did did that test case, and an AI turned on the guy at the computer and sort of went against his coding, and he destroyed it. It was all simulation, of course. And I thought, wow, what if that were to happen in real life? Well, now here we are, AI-powered drones that aren't controllable, that are, and by the way, unjammable as well. So we are rapidly approaching a time where Americans better be prepared, Christian Americans especially. You better make sure you know Jesus as your Savior. You better make sure you're prayed up and in the Word of God, and you have a biblical answer for all of these things that are happening. And that's really what we try to do in Fade to Black. We lay out the case how the world is fading to black, but then we look at it through the lens of Scripture and say, okay, now what? How do we prepare for what's coming? How does this fit into God's plan of the ages? And what are some practical steps we can take in light of it all?
Yeah, love it. Love it, love it, love it. Look at these couple more stories here. Mamdani, the fraud. New York cuts power during heat wave to Bronx Jewish neighborhood. Really, that's what the Islamic SDA or SDS, Socialist Democrats of America. That's what he's done here, huh? A Marxist Islamist. Wow. And then we add another story to it, and that is Netanyahu urges Israel, America, not to sell these F-35 fighter jets to Turkey. And of course, this is so dumb because Turkey is saying over and over they want to take Jerusalem, that the Zionists are a cancer, et cetera, et cetera. We just had the foreign minister we quoted saying that Israel is a burden to the world, and we're going to give them F-35s. Not to mention, Trump didn't do this back in 2019 because of the concern that Turkey would give this off to Russia or China, and then they could look and see what technology is there to get around our stealth fighters. And I'm told experts are saying that threat's still there. So this is just so foolish.
Yeah, it's hard to know why he is doing this. I think we talked about this recently on your show. I don't know if he's controlled or if he's just so fixated on the financial aspect of it and making the deal for an economic reason, or what it is, but it just doesn't add up. Turkey has been a real problem for a long time, and now that they're overtly speaking threats against Israel, of all times, why now would you start funding them and giving them these weapons? And so time will tell. But I tell you what, we need to pray for our president, pray that somebody bends his ear and he's able to repent of these latest words, whether it's just rhetoric or whether he actually believes what he's saying. Either way, it's not helpful. It's not productive.
No.
So.
Fade to Black, and the book is available at fadetoblackbook.com. What do you think of this book, Dolly? You seem pretty impressed with this interview tonight. You're very, very involved in this interview tonight. I got to pull that down so everybody can see your beautiful face. You're very intrigued by this one tonight. Fadetoblackbook.com. He's got a lab. You're a lab. He's got a lab. So he must be a pretty good guy. His lab is 10. You're only 2. Let's see. Let's pray you get to 10, right?
Let's get them together for a play date.
Oh, come on over to Tennessee. Although she's scared of everything. You know, where she hears there's a little thunder outside.
Juno goes crazy when the storms come up. We have to give her these little pills,
Yeah,
so
she's a little nervous. There's thunder, right? Can't have thunder going on. All right, great interview, great book. Fade to Black, Rise of Global Tyranny, J.B. Hixson, available at fadetoblackbook.com. Thank you, J.B.
Thanks, Brandon. God bless.
Thank you. And we'll be right back after this break, right? Unless something tragic happens to us due to all the storm, which I don't think will. 2 years old. Have you ever had a problem during a storm? He's literally shaking. It's all right. It'll be just fine. All right? I promise. Have I ever lied to you? Yeah, there was that one time you put me in my kennel and you say you'd be right back, and it was like 6 hours later. So yeah, Dad, you have. Okay, well, sorry. We'll be right back, guys.
At a certain age, you stop chasing younger. You start protecting what helps you feel steady, strong, and well. Your body's collagen matters. It supports the structure of your skin, joints, and connective tissue. But as the years go by, your body needs more support from the inside. That's where Bella Grace Elixir comes in. Bella Grace Elixir combines Verisol collagen, the world's most clinically proven collagen, with asteryl astaxanthin and cat's claw in a proprietary blend designed to help support the processes that reconstruct collagen, while also offering antioxidant and anti-inflammatory effects. And this isn't just for women. It's for men and women who want to age with more confidence, more care, and a daily wellness routine that supports the body from within. One simple elixir, thoughtfully formulated for whole body wellness. Take care of the body that has carried you this far. Order Bella Grace Elixir today at melissahousebg.com.
Joining me now is Patrick Wood and Courtenay Turner. We've got big news. We've talked about it on radio today for a little bit, and we're going to deal with it more tonight in another segment with Michael Weiner. But I'm going to make reference to it a few times because I know people tune in, tune out. So I'm not just repeating myself as I am trying to set the table for anyone joining. Plus, after these programs go off the air, we chop them up, put them up at segments, and so we have to repeat ourselves sometime. I wrote an article today at worldviewtimes.com. The digital dollar is almost here. Here's what it means for you. And in that, I quoted the fact that on June 30th, a group of more than 140 major companies launched a brand new digital dollar called OpenUSD. This was not a handful of tech startups. This list included Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Stripe, BlackRock, Coinbase, Google, and Shopify. When the companies that run the world's payment systems and manage trillions of dollars all line up behind the same product on the same day, that's not an experiment. That is a takeover of the plumbing. Joining me now to talk about that. And we also have this news. Stablecoin issuer Circle just got the green light to operate as a bank. Joining me is Patrick Wood and Courtenay Turner. Guys, welcome to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Good to be here.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Patrick, what do you make of these two stories today? Pretty big news, huh?
It really is. We have to analyze it and see exactly what it's going to mean, but we know that the age of tokenization is upon us. That's a statement at this point that you can't deny it. And who's going to slice up the pie? This is the big question. Who's going to have the biggest slice of the pie, and who's going to have the least? I think the regional banks and the state banks and the savings and loans probably going to be on the short end of the stick in the end. And the big banks probably will make out like bandits.
Wow. Courtenay, what do you make of these two big stories today? Which, again, most Americans don't know these two stories. They don't understand the ramifications or the stage setting that's going on here with these two stories. Speak to our audience and tell them what it means for the average American.
Well, I think that initially the banks were actually our allies in pushing back against this Clarity Act. For those who don't know, it was originally inside the Genius Act, and it was the banks who kept pushing back so hard that they had to take it outside and make it a separate bill, which is still getting a lot of pushback. But I think that this shows that they're kind of creating this merger between the banks and the digital infrastructure that will pave the way so they can kind of go around or preempt the Clarity Act. That's kind of what it looks like to me. I think they think that they'll figure out how to get that rammed through, even though they are getting resistance. They're getting resistance from all sides. It's interesting. There's people like Senator Warren, who I never thought I'd align with on anything. But people of all sides are pushing back for very different reasons, not necessarily for the same reasons that, I or Patrick or you might be pushing back against it. But since they are, I think what they're doing is right now they're setting things up in motion so that when that does get passed, they'll have everything already kind of all the regulatory and all the kind of infrastructure will be set in motion already. That's what it looks like to me.
Well, tell our audience, remind our audience, so I know we've shown a graphic before from you guys, one of your graphics about this whole system being built. And at the bottom of it, you have as the foundation, the Clarity Act. Explain to our audience what the Clarity Act is all about for those who don't know, Patrick.
Courtenay does a better job.
All right, Courtenay, go ahead.
Okay, so but really the whole purpose of all of this is to create a legitimacy for the digital infrastructure. The Clarity Act, like the big institutions don't actually need it. So like the JP Morgans and the super big banks can operate around it. But what it does is so that the individual can now have a payment token that will be essentially like have a legitimate layer through the Federal Reserve, through the treasuries. It'll be, so the dollar will be backed. So that's essentially what it is doing. But the problem with it is that it paves the way for the tokenization, because the Clarity Act is what now it can make it so that you can do not just payment tokens, you'll be able to do asset-based tokens, and these will all be programmable, surveillable. The big word they're using right now is that they're calling it transparent, and they're promoting that as being like a positive thing. The problem with transparency means that you have no privacy. It's all on the digital ledger, which is all completely transparent. What they're selling right now, part of the reason that the banks were pushing back against all of this is that it means that every transaction will now have a fee, and that fee will go to the issuer. So like, for instance, just to make this concrete for people, something like the World Liberty Financial USD1, that's the, Trump's dollar, digital dollar that's backed by the dollar. So it's a 1-to-1. So they would now get a transaction fee. The Clarity Act is what makes it so that they can receive that fee. And this is part of why the banks don't like it, because then they're being completely wiped out. But what it looks like now with the OCC, what happened today is it looks like they're working out some sort of a deal where they both benefit from this. So they benefit from the speed of the, fiber optics, but they also can still all benefit from the fees. Mm-hmm. But this
is why you see Shopify, MasterCard, Visa jumping on board now, because now they can make money from the fees.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, yes, and there's another aspect of this as well. The interest that accrues because these tokens have to be backed by treasury bills, right? Who gets the interest now on the treasuries? Well, the token holders say we want to get the interest. That sets up a situation where the banks are screaming because, hey, the banks have savings accounts. They're not competitive with treasury bills at all. So they look at this as a
what is the
threat.
Current treasury rate at right now? 4 or 5%, 7%?
Something over.
I'll look it up.
Yeah, something over 3.75, something like that. But you can't find a savings account that has that kind of interest at this point anywhere in the country. So the big issue that the smaller banks around the country were pushing back against was this interest equation. Okay. Because they saw that as a potential run on their banks. Mm-hmm. And I think they're absolutely correct to think that.
10-year treasury yield right now is 4.56%. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
2-year is 4.20%. 30-year is 5.06%. So there you go. Now, what we got here then is you could go and start a stable coin if you wanted. You could have the Patrick Wood stable coin. And you go out there and you sell your stable coin. Pretty easy to do, I guess, because a lot of people doing it. And, some people start them and nobody wants to buy them. But those who have big name, I guess the people think, wow, let's buy these. I don't know why. I don't understand yet how they think they're going to make money on it. But they go and they buy these stable coins, like Trump's stable coin, correct? And then Trump or whoever is running a stable coin backs those with treasuries. So they have to go and buy treasuries to back their stable coin. Like we used to have gold back our dollar. Now we have treasuries backing the stable coins. And then there is this return. Okay. The question is, who gets this return? Are they going to split it? Or will the stablecoin company make a percentage of it? Will the holder of the stablecoin make a percentage of it? And then when you go to use the stable coin, there's a transaction fee that the issuer can make money on, just like the credit card companies make a transaction fee every time you swipe a credit card. They charge a percentage of that transaction fee to the merchant. So there's money to be made here, and the banks are now feeling competition. Now, why would this be done by a government like the Trump administration? I can only assume because of corporatism and family businesses, in my opinion. This is a way for them to make money. This is a way for their corporate friends and multimillionaires and billionaires to make money. But it's also, if it's not that reason, which I think is a good motivation for many of them, but if it's not that one, it's, hey, the dollar is backed by nothing. It's collapsing on us. Let's get people to want to buy our debt because we now are 101% to GDP in debt. Let's get people to buy our debt by starting stablecoin companies. But to do that, you got to back your stablecoin with Treasury. So people are now buying our debt so they can get into the stablecoin business. Now we got people financing the debt since we have other countries and people that want to, outside the U.S., maybe they don't want to hold these dollars and invest in American debt. Do I have all that correct, Patrick?
I think you do. And we need the intended consequence is to drive the other banks around the country out of business.
Okay, stop right there. The intent by some is to drive the other banks out of business.
Absolutely.
Are you saying that some of the big banks that are on board with this, what they're trying to do is take out the lower banks, which will then only leave you with maybe a dozen banks in the country?
Exactly.
And wouldn't it just be just coincidental if those dozen banks happen to be the dozen that have the federal charter with the Federal Reserve?
That's exactly right. These are the big dogs at the top. And this consolidation has been going on for a long time at this point. This is not recent. This has been happening for at least 20 years, 25 years. And
so if you then basically have your central bank, which is made up of, let's say, I think it's accurate, 12 major banks make up the Federal Reserve, right?
Yeah,
okay,
that's right.
So basically now the Federal Reserve of the United States, these 12 banks are running the economy of America, controlling everything. They know what everyone is doing, what they're buying, what they're purchasing, everything. Now, let's say the central banks of other industrialized worlds do the same thing. And so we go to the Bank for International Settlements out of Basel, Switzerland, which is the headquarters of those central banks of the industrialized worlds. And they're all doing the same thing in their countries. So now your big central banks of the industrialized worlds are running the world economy and setting up a digital system by which they are making the bulk of the money because they've cut out all the competition. So all the credit cards, all the online purchases, all the using of your smartphone to buy something, Apple Pay, whatever, all of this now gets those banks making all the money, right? It gets out all the competition. But then working in concert with their governments, meaning the central banks largely, again, are private banks in contract with the government. It's the United States government in contract with these 12 banks that make up the Federal Reserve, a non-government institution, if you will. Now, in concert, you have big government and big business. And they pass legislation that now has the big government and big business of the banks, the dozen banks behind the Federal Reserve, running our economy, and they can decide who is banking, who is not, who's buying, who's not, turn people on, turn people off. I mean, we're talking mark of the beast technology. And if you have the industrialized, civilized world doing this, it doesn't take much for those systems to be integrated, and it's being done now on a global scale. And you end up with a mark of the beast system of Revelation 13. Am I off the mark here on this in any way, Patrick?
I don't think so. That's basically the bottom line. Where this will go in the near future, I think, will be the consolidation of the banking system upwards, and the interest that's going to come off the Treasury bills or notes, but mostly bills at this point. That's going to be the pie that all these actors will share. Probably
has anyone figured out that yet? I don't think they have yet, right? Because isn't that what's in my article? That the second big story beyond the June 30th group of 140 major companies getting behind the Open USD, the second major story is the government's racing to write the rule book after the federal law, the Genius Act, was passed last year. Now they have about 10 days to figure out the rules and decide which companies are allowed to issue these digital dollars and under what conditions. So now I'm guessing this is where the rules come in. Okay, so if you do treasuries and someone does a 3-month treasury, they buy the coin and it's backed by a 3-month treasury, there's 3.69% there. Okay, who's going to make that 3.69? How are they going to split it with the individual that bought the stable coin? And then if you do 6 month, you're at 3.82. You do 2 year, you're at 4.20%. If you do higher than that, it goes up. So this must be where these regulations are going to be decided. The stable coin issuer can keep 70%, but he must give 30% to the one that bought the stable coin. 30% return, or 30% of that 3.69% or whatever it is they're going to give. Like you said, it wouldn't be very long before, even if you gave them a percentage, 1 percentage point, would that not be equal to most of your banks today? I don't even know, what are most banks paying?
Totally. This will drive reserves out of the smaller banks into stable coins. This was the intent from the get-go. They said this openly, that if they can manage the national debt with stable coins, it will convert the whole system, flip it on its head at that point. And you might remember there was a discussion 2 or 3 years ago that the Federal Reserve was talking about opening or having the capability to, or offering the capability to people to go to them directly to open a bank account. Who would stay with a local bank if the Federal Reserve had their own bank account open? So for you, right? So that didn't happen. But now we have the same thing happening right now with payment tokens based on treasury bills. The interest will be shared, not equally for sure, but the lion's share will probably go to the people who are writing the stuff in the first place. But enough will be given to the token holders to make it worth their while to switch their reserves out of the banks into stable coins.
And so that's when all those banks go out of business, collapse. Okay, so I just looked up, what is the average rate of return on a money market right now? Does anyone dare to guess? Does anyone want to guess what the return on a money market is right now?
Boy,
Huh? Does anyone want to guess?
Somewhere under 0.5%.
You're exactly right. It's 0.45%, under 0.5%. So if they come along and say, we'll give you a 1% return, you're more than doubling what the banks are going to do, and they get to keep the if it's 3.69%, then they get to keep the 2.69. They give them, the customer that bought it 1%. They're more than doubling what the bank are giving them. Courtney, this is how you collapse the banks and consolidate. And you say, hey, it's just the free market. It's the free market, Courtney. Is it really the free market?
No, but I do think that is exactly what they're selling it, right? So the Genius Act kind of lays the groundwork so that it gives the digital dollar some sort of an instrument and legitimacy. And now I think the other thing about the OCC is what it's doing is now it's consolidating, right? So everything, it almost becomes the choke point. I don't know if you remember a couple of months ago, I did that 2-rail trap about how the SEC was essentially creating 2 paths on the stock market, where one would be the regular market and then the other would be the digital, but they're going to end up in the converging. And that's exactly what looks like is happening here. So they're essentially making this so that both the banks, the OCC now will become like this kind of a central charter bank. It does seem like it would become a choke point, but now it's going to approve which digital assets can be utilized and which that's why the Circle was the first one, but there are all these companies that are lined up right afterwards. And then the Clarity Act will then be the broader kind of marketplace, and that's where they're going to sell it to you as like the Trump administration called their USD1 the truth dollar. And they said that it was an alternative to the censorship. So they were absolutely selling it to you as a part of the marketplace. But obviously, once things become consolidated upwards, this isn't about decentralization.
Look, I asked the computer system to make me a little chart. Look at this rate comparison. So the Treasury yield 3-month around 3.27 to 3.8. Okay. National Bank average this is for a CD, for CDs, is 1.2 to 1.4. 6 month on a Treasury, 3.8, average CD, 1.4 to 1.6. So again, the Treasuries are way better than just buying a CD at your local bank. And you can see how you can, so the point I'm trying to make here is you can see where the banks are just going to get, they're just going to get toasted.
Let me tell you how a bank goes out of business.
Okay.
What happens, your loans don't get canceled, right? A bigger bank comes along
and buys them.
They buys all the assets of the former bank, right? And they take them as their own, and you pay you make the payments to them. And if you had a savings account, you might get some of it based on FDIC insurance. Maybe not, but nevertheless, the idea is you have, say, $50,000. That's no problem. They'll honor that as well. So you have this process going on all around the country. When one bank goes out of business, your assets are moved, your loans, et cetera, are moved to a higher bank. They take charge of all those assets. If somebody else comes along and that bank goes out of business, a bigger bank comes along and buys those assets and so on up the line. Now, just think about this for a minute. This is my proposition. I think probably the governments of the world, the only reason for them to stay in place is to play the regulatory role of outlining or making it possible for these larger banks to consume everything in the world. And let me tell you, the bank of final settlement in America is the Federal Reserve. Okay, I'm just saying, I'm not. There's no prediction. I don't want to cause a run of the banks, whatever. But if the Federal Reserve told the United States or any other central bank in the world, if they said to their host country, "You're now bankrupt. You're bankrupt. And we're going to take all of the assets that you have and put them in our own portfolio," what would happen? That would be kind of the final coup d'etat for everybody in the world, or at least the BIS and the central banks, basically to end up owning everything. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but at this point, the United States is basically bankrupt. Nobody can defend our asset position right now. There's no way. So everybody can acknowledge, well, we're living on borrowed time with all this debt we have right now. And if the Federal Reserve says, we're going to collapse this thing because you can't pay your debts, we're going to take them over. We're going to take over all the assets you have, all the people you're collecting money from, et cetera, and put it on our own portfolio. That would be catastrophic to everything in the whole economy.
You want to comment on this?
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I think that would be catastrophic. Yeah.
Look at this. I also asked for this, a little runner report. What does the debt, 101% of GDP, mean? Debt held by the public, 31 to 32 trillion. Okay. Mm-hmm. Annual U.S. global domestic product, which is the size of our economy, is 31 to 32 trillion. So that means the debt ratio now to GDP is 101%.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we're spending $1 trillion a year making interest payments.
Yeah, that's right.
On the debt every year, 1 trillion. I think the total debt for the country when Reagan was in office was 1 trillion. I think the total, can you fact check me on that, please, Logan? He said, say it again. What is it? He's not listening to the show. I thought you'd be hanging on every word your old man says, Logan. He's actually in there looking for a clip for me for something I asked him to look for. Fact check me on this, please. The total debt under the Reagan administration, the national debt, not federal deficit, national debt was $1 trillion. National debt, $1 trillion under Reagan. See if that's true. Because if that's the case, that means now we're paying interest of $1 trillion a year. We're paying an interest alone. What was the entire debt?
The debt tripled under Reagan.
Yep, but what was
from
it?
997 billion to 2.85 trillion.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
it crossed $1 trillion in October of 1981, and then by the time he left office, it was 2.6 trillion.
Okay, so it did cross into the trillion when he was in office, but it ended up going up 2 point what trillion?
2.85.
To 2.6.
Okay. So in 1981, it was under or right at $1 trillion when he came into office.
Yeah.
Now today, the debt we pay is an interest alone is $1 trillion. So that's just since 1981. From 1981, we've gone to $1 trillion debt. To just the interest on the debt is $1 trillion. That is now 1981 sounds like a long time ago. It's not that long time. It's not that long ago, is it, Patrick? So in other words, it's showing you how fast this thing is moving to collapse.
Back up to 1973 when the Trilateral Commission was formed in the first place. David Rockefeller was the head banker in that era. Okay, when the Trilateral Commission convened, you check your chart there. I don't have it right in front of me right now, but this national debt ballooned starting in 1973. You'll see the curve. If you make a chart on it, you'll see the curve all of a sudden go boop, and then it through Carter, through Reagan, and on till what we have today. That was the point of inflection when David Rockefeller and Brzezinski got together and said, we're going to create a new international economic order. That's exactly what they said. This was a product. The national debt is a product of that new international economic order. And it's going to it'll eventually destroy the world. But the whole purpose of the new international economic order was to subvert the resources themselves into the hands of the elite, irregardless of the money.
All right, here's the chart. Here's the chart. You asked for it. Your wish is my demand. Here we go. Here's a chart showing the dramatic growth in the U.S. gross national debt from 1973 to 2026. Hey, look at that.
There you go. Am I right or not?
You're right. In fact, the national debt in 1973 was about $458 billion, I think was what I read.
Chump change. Chump change. I know. Right? It was nothing. It was nothing.
Wow.
These people have ballooned the debt forward or higher, and now I have to say my idea was in the first place, Rockefeller wanted to have some way. I think he saw the end of money, honestly, because the fiat currency at that point was as obvious. So at some point, it's going to be over. But he saw this as a way to get the resources of the world into or out of our hands, out of the nation states' hands, into their hands. So it doesn't matter in the end of it really doesn't matter who owns anything.
Which really brings you to the point of who are the 10 world assistants of Antichrist, the 10 horns or 10 kings who have not yet received a kingdom, but who for 1 hour receive authority with the beast, and then they give their power to the Antichrist. Who is that? I have said for several years, I think those could be the presidents of various unions, a North American union, a South American union, et cetera, et cetera. And the presidents of those unions could be the presidents of those European Central Bank. The president of the European Union is also the president of the European Central Bank, right? It's one of the same. It's the bankers. It's very powerful people at the top who represent really who owns that union, of that part of the government or the nation or the world, I should say. So whoever really is owning the bulk of the assets in the North American Union, in this case would be the bankers, they appoint their man. They meet and they pick their man. And now you're really being ruled by a banker, right? So the North American Union is run by a guy picked by the bankers. That's their guy. And that goes on all over the world. That, to me, makes perfect sense for an antichrist system, who they then put in a system of the mark of the beast, because it's their system.
That's right. You get it. You're getting it.
Oh boy.
I'm going to show later tonight some graphics with Michael Weiner. I made some charts today, and what I was doing was I was showing what has happened to the U.S. dollar, and it's really not gold going up; it's the dollar going down. And I'm going to show this tonight with Michael in more detail. Briefly mentioned it on radio today. I was talking to a family member who mentioned to me about a family member leaving another family member $20,000 in 1963. And I thought, I know what a dollar will buy, 20,000 would buy in the Mid-South. You could buy a nice house in the Mid-South in 1963 for $20,000. What would that be today, the equivalent thereof? Today, that would be the equivalent in purchasing power. You'd have to buy what you bought for $20,000 in 1963. Today, you'd have to spend $215,825 to get the same product, services, whatever it might be. And then I went and I looked at gold and I did a little chart. What if you put, thank you, babe. What if you put gold, if you got $20,000 of gold? Now, they didn't open it up to be legal to buy gold until I think it was December 31st, 1974. But let's just say you were able to buy $20,000 in gold in 1963 at $35 an ounce, and you held it, that $20,000, and you just locked it away in a vault. Today, that would be worth $2,354,000. Right? There you go. This is not gold going up. It's the dollar going down. I mean, when they opened the gold for you to be able to buy it in December 31st, 1974. So basically, in the new year of 1975 is when people started buying it. So let's say 1976, you bought gold. That was at $125.32 an ounce in 1976 on average. So if you just put $20,000 into gold in 1976, today that would be worth $657,000, $657,500, doing nothing but holding it. What I'm trying to show here is the death of the dollar. We've lost 90% of our purchasing power of the U.S. dollar since 1963. Okay? So everyone can pretty much see that understands these things, other than those who sit and doom scroll on social media all day and have attention span of a gnat. But the people that actually watch this show, who are educated and are readers and leaders, they get it. And they see what's happening. Excuse me. And that's why they're running into gold and silver and hard assets as fast as they can get them. And this is also, I think, why the bankers and the central bankers are buying up gold at record numbers. And this is another reason when these banks collapse, they're going to be more than happy to take over these banks and acquire the hard assets that have the loans tied to those hard assets. Patrick?
Let's remember in the book of Revelation how trade is conducted. Like, look at chapter 17, 18 in Revelation. It's all conducted with gold. Gold is a medium of exchange. If you don't have the gold, you're not going to get the goods, at least on a national basis. So when we talk about the IMEC corridor being digitized and all this stuff, all the assets of the world, flowing to Europe or wherever, well, right now it's all going to be digital, based on digital currencies. There will be a time in the future, maybe after the rapture for sure, but nevertheless, at some time before we get to Revelation 18, it'll be gold, this medium of exchange. Period. There will be there's no other currency in sight at that point, other than gold.
Which explains why the central banks are buying it up in big numbers.
You got it. That's my point. That's why the central banks want it. This is why the central banks flat out dissed gold starting in 1973. They said, no, that's an antique, it's a obsolete, you don't want gold, that's stupid. And they talked everybody around about getting rid of their gold, and it was all sucked up by the central banks. And over the years, they've continued that narrative. Oh, gold, forget gold, that's stupid, you can't get a hold of gold, you can't eat it or whatever. And they've conned people into keeping kind of the lid on price so that they could get it into their own hands. But remember, gold is the major premier asset of the world. Everybody wants to hold gold. Everybody in sight loves gold, even down to the little people. And remember, this won't be certainly in the next 3 or 4 years necessarily. But remember, FDR took America's gold away from them. This could happen again at any point along the way. If political laws or political authoritarianism around the world said to the people, we're going to take control of all the gold in society, that would be the end of gold for the people.
What if
I could see this happen?
What if President Trump, I'm just spitballing here, Courtney, President Trump, they made fun of him when he ran for president. Remember, Barack Obama said Donald Trump will never be president, and he was mocking him so viciously. And so many people were just mocking the idea of Donald Trump running for president. What like he has no prayer. He has no chance. This is hilarious. They did the same thing to Ronald Reagan. Really, the actor, who played in a movie with a chimp, Bonzo. This is going to be the president, and they just laughed at Ronald Reagan. And the establishment hated Reagan. The establishment hated Andrew Jackson. And of course, he did away with the central bank and told our country never to get one again. We didn't listen. They hated Andrew Jackson of my home state, Courtney's home state of Tennessee. They hated Donald Trump. Perhaps they tried to kill Donald Trump in Butler. Well, they certainly impeached him a few times. They've indicted him. They took his mugshot. What if Donald Trump, I'm just spitballing here. What if Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is on record over and over talking about revenge. Yeah, you go and get revenge. He talks about that. He brags. You do. You go and get revenge. We know as Christians, the Bible says, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. But Donald Trump said, no, you go for revenge. What if Donald Trump has found allies in the big tech world and in a few of these big bankers, some of them who have been some of his friends, and he's decided this is the way to burn the whole system down and screw these people that have been messing with me, indicting me, impeaching me. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to turn the table over. They mocked me. They mocked my father. They were, the East Coast elites. They looked down on me, kind of the way the elites did to JFK and his dad. And this is going to be his way of turning over the whole card table, putting in a system that just neuters these guys. And at the end of the day, after President Trump, what if the president of the United States is nothing? The president of the United States after Donald Trump becomes virtually nothing because the power has been consolidated into the big remaining banks, big tech, big business. Those are the powerful people. Do you want to be the president who takes the marching orders from these guys? Or would you want to be one of the big bankers that make up the Federal Reserve or the big tech guys who are all together in this new system of technocracy? The presidency won't be worth a pitcher of warm spit. That's how one guy described the vice presidency. He said he was a vice president. I can't remember which one said it, but he said the vice president wasn't worth a pitcher of warm spit. Perhaps after Donald Trump, the presidency itself isn't worth a pitcher of warm spit. You're basically a butler taking your marching orders from who really owns it all. And you know what? who makes the rules, the golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rules. I just came to this conclusion listening to you guys tonight that maybe Donald Trump is the last powerful president ever in the history of the United States. Any remaining president after him, if this system is put into place, that's the if this system can be put into place before he leaves, the next president from here on out will be basically toothless. What do you think of this? I mean, I'm spitballing, but what do you think of this, Patrick?
I think that's a good possibility. You know, you can kind of see the handwriting on the wall, because the tech elite and the banking system, they're merging together for sure. They're more powerful than any government on earth. They seem to be the custodians of all the money in the world at this point. Like I said, most countries right now are bankrupt around the world. What do they have to give? Well, they have land. Probably they could get all the land assets. We have a lot of land in our country. It's not tokenized yet, but there's like 682 million acres of land that the federal government owns. This is probably the same case in other countries, but they've been buried in debt. And if the debtor comes and makes claim to that, said we can't take this anymore, you're out of business, we're going to take all your assets and we're going to consolidate them in our own portfolio. You end up basically at that point, if there's a concept of nation states at all, it'll be basically caretakers that are given the positions of power at that point. Not for the for the sake of exercising power, but just keeping the seat warm.
Mm-hmm. What do you think of this spitballing we're doing here, Courtney?
Well, there was a lot of speculation that Trump was going to be the last president. That was definitely floating around. I think there were some books written on that.
Really?
Yeah, I was trying to look for the titles because I don't know, but I remember hearing that, and I remember there were books written on it. So it was definitely floated, and of course that's a lot of where that whole rhetoric of the no kings came from, right? That he was going to be this forever king. Yeah. So the theory has definitely been floated, but I can definitely see where it's the pendulum has swung so far, right? Where the president is amassed so much power, which is not how the Constitution was constructed at all. There are 3 branches of government, and they were designed to be checks and balances. And actually, the executive branch was actually supposed to be the weaker of the branches. Congress is supposed to have a lot of power. Unfortunately, Congress seems to have a lot of power right now, mostly by vacationing. That seems to be by withholding. They're not doing what they should be doing. I mean, there's a lot Congress could be doing right now, and I think it's incumbent upon us, really, the citizens. We should be putting a lot more pressure on them. But most people do not exercise their civic duty at all. But as far as this technocratic infrastructure, I can totally see what you're saying become a reality, whether it happens after Trump or it's building to that. Things are very much being consolidated where there's all this discussion about having an AI-run government where all the voting will become AI. Of course, they're selling it to people, marketing to people as a direct participatory democracy, which if you know anything about our founding, they did not want a democracy at all. They saw that as a tyranny, it would be mob rule. So they did not want a direct participatory democracy, but most people do not have, the understanding, unfortunately, of what it is that our true founding was. So when they hear that, they get all excited, and they're selling them right now that the AI will be the way that they can have this direct participatory democracy. And once you have this infrastructure that's being set up with the banking, I think once the Clarity Act goes into effect, you have a system where everything can be, I use the term cybernetic organism because I think it really is the best way to describe it, but it becomes this feedback loop, right, where they can completely control everything. And so, yeah, they don't really need a president at that point because they have a lot of the power already now. So, but that would be really total power. So,
yes.
Wow. Well, it took nearly 200 years, I was reading a while ago here, nearly 200 years to reach 1 trillion in debt for our country. 1789 to 1980, 1789 to 1980 to finally reach, so nearly 200 years to reach 1 trillion. And here we are now paying 1 trillion just on the interest alone on the debt. And now, again, the big story tonight is stablecoin issuer Circle just got the green light to operate as a bank. And now we're also finding out from our news story today we've covered that is 140 major companies have launched a brand new digital dollar called OpenUSD. So again, it's all coming together. Now that brings us to our final topic, a digital bill of rights for the states. Tell me about this, Patrick.
Well, this is our stab at bringing a solution to the states, at least, where we have probably a smidgen of possibility of getting this passed somewhere. But nevertheless, the discussion has to be had. We've been cheated out of our rights all along the way. And the digital Bill of Rights at this point, it needs to be stated clearly and succinctly what it should look like to protect the people of any given state. This is we're not saying this is a national thing. We don't want Congress to have anything to do with this at this point. But the states are in a position to erect a firewall around the citizenry to keep them protected from all this nonsense. They could do that. They have the power to do it if they would do it. So we said, the first thing I thought, well, why not just create a digital Bill of Rights and see what it looks like? I don't know. And I just started fiddling around, and all of a sudden this took shape. And then I handed off to Courtenay. She polished it more, and then we published it. And already in 3 days, I think now, we've had several state legislators looking at it already. Arizona, Wyoming, maybe in Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And, so this is going to get some attention. This is a discussion that we need to have somewhere along the way. And maybe now is the time. Maybe the states can't do anything at all. But nevertheless, the people of the states, they should see what they've been cheated out of.
Courtenay?
Yeah, so I'm super excited about this, and I agree, regardless of whether it gets implemented or not, the conversation needs to be had. And it does sound like, I know I've got several people in Tennessee who are looking at it right now, and on Monday, I'm going to be doing a round of calls to the legislators. So I made a big noise about the natural asset companies, and we did get it rescinded. I don't think it's over. They've rebranded, but we did get them to rescind the proposal on the New York Stock Exchange, and that actually stopped several of the bills in Tennessee surrounding the conservation easements. So, people do have power, and to do this through the states is actually a much stronger initiative than it would be to do it federally. First of all, federally will take years. It will take a very long time. I don't think we have that kind of time. That's first and foremost. But secondly, federally is much easier to be compromised through transnational types of interests and organizations, through the NGOs and whatnot. I'm not saying that the states can't be compromised. I've seen it firsthand. They absolutely can. But when you do it through the states, it's much more decentralized. And so you have, the individuals of the states can put more pressure. So I do think there is much more hope. And that's what the whole purpose of the 10th Amendment was. So I think we should exercise it. Absolutely. And one of the things that, when I polished it up, one of the things that was very important to me is, and this is something that already stands, it's just something that's not taught. That's why the conversation is so important, was to model it after the metaphysical firewall that the Declaration of Independence codified. And that is what is in this digital Bill of Rights. This already exists. We already have that codified through the Declaration of Independence, which the Constitution is a legal extension of. It is supposed to be predicated upon those metaphysics. But this would reinforce it through the states, and it is drafted to be an amendment, but it might be faster for people to propose it as a law. That is another way that they can do it, and that can absolutely be done through the states, and that might be a faster route Each state might be different, but that metaphysical firewall, says that we are human beings. We are not human constructs to be molded like clay and to be upgraded. There's no digital twin that can be a replica of what a human being is. We have inherent rights and dignity that were conferred by our creator, which means that because no government, no apparatus, no AI, no technological infrastructure granted them, they cannot be revoked because they were not granted by any of those, not even the government. And that was the whole premise of the Declaration of Independence and what the Constitution represents, the legal document based upon. And this would strengthen it and also create that firewall against any kind of a technological protocol layer that could override it.
Yeah, indeed. Fascinating discussion tonight. Absolutely fascinating. Courtenay is Courtenay, CourtenayTurner.com, CourtenayTurner.com. And Patrick is technocracynews.com. Or no, technocracy.news, right?
That's right.
Technocracy.
By the way, people can go to Substack, Courtenay's Substack, or mine, or Technocracy News, and download this Bill of Rights for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Please do. We want people to take it. We lay no claim to it. Public domain. Go for it.
Yep.
Spread it around.
And please do. And by the way, Patrick, we've been promoting Swiss American, working with him for 30 years. I bought my first amount of gold in 1993. And I don't think I've ever talked to you about it, but I would venture to guess, knowing you know all you know, you probably have been a big supporter of the idea of gold and hard assets for decades yourself as well, haven't you?
Yes. I have, since 1973. That's why when I entered the workforce as a young stockbroker.
Wow. So you, like me, think that gold is a way to not only hedge against inflation, but also to get assets off the bullseye and have privacy, right?
Yep, that's exactly right. It is. Yeah, it's the ticket to privacy for sure. We're going to live with it until we can't. So that's all you can say. As long as it's available to us, we have to live with it. To own gold, silver, whatever floats your boat, and in whatever quantity you can. Some people just can't afford it right now. So the people that can, that's a great thing for them to do. It's a good place to park your assets, no doubt. But we see this consolidation of all the precious other assets of the world being accumulated, and probably gold at some point is going to be on the chopping block for consolidation. Mm-hmm. In the meantime, we're going to fight this. We fight with what we can, and gold's a big part of that.
Yep, absolutely. All right, guys, as always, great. Thank you. Thank you, guys. And Patrick, you got a new book out at technocracy.news, right?
I certainly do. It's called The New Economics of Technocracy. You Will Own Nothing.
It's available there. And of course, their book they jointly wrote together, The Final Betrayal, is available there as well. And on Amazon, I'm sure. On Amazon as well? Okay.
Amazon is in.
Let's come back on another program. Let's collect some information and data, the three of us, and let's do another visit together on this idea that President Trump might indeed be the last president of the United States. And I don't mean that there won't be another president, but he may be the last most powerful president, that if this whole system is put in place before he leaves, the power is going to go increasingly to the technocrats and the remaining big bankers.
It looks like they're grooming J.D. Vance to possibly even take over before, Trump can finish. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, Vance is definitely a puppet of the technocrats, in my estimation.
So he'll be their little errand boy.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he would. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Peter Thiel is his sponsor. Mm-hmm. Peter Thiel is his sponsor.
Yep. Fascinating conversation as always. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we'll be right back after this break. Don't go away. Friends, this is Brandon House. For more than a year now, I've been teaching through the book of Revelation, and the response from you has been overwhelming. You've asked me again and again, when are you going to put this study in print? We want to mark it up. We want to share it with our families. Well, it's here. My brand new 2-volume commentary on the book of Revelation, verse by verse, chapter by chapter. This is not a watered down, allegorized replacement theology approach to Revelation. This is a literal, grammatical, historical study, the way the Lord intended his word to be read. And I connect the prophecy of Revelation to the headlines you're watching unfold right now, the rise of global government and the convergence of end-time events the Lord Jesus warned us about. Folks, we are living in serious days, and there has never been a more important time to understand what God has told us about what is coming. Get your 2-volume Revelation commentary today at worldviewstore.com. That's worldviewstore.com. We have a lot of breaking news tonight. Folks, they clearly are preparing for the death of the U.S. dollar. Here is another major indication, I believe. A lot of you probably are not aware of this. Stablecoin issuer Circle just got the green light to operate as a bank. The shares are up 5%. I also have an article tonight. If you go over to worldviewreport.com, I already mentioned it once tonight. The digital dollar is almost here. I want to mention this to Michael. Look at this. 2 things have just happened. First, on June 30th, a group of more than 140 major companies launched a brand new digital dollar called OpenUSD. This was not a handful of tech startups. The list includes Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Stripe, BlackRock, Coinbase, Google, and Shopify. When the companies that run the world's payment systems and manage trillions of dollars all line up behind the same product on the same day, that's not an experiment. That's a takeover of the plumbing. Second, the government is racing to write the rule book. A federal law called the Genius Act was passed last year, but by July 18th of this year, the regulators must finish the rules that decide which companies are allowed to issue these digital dollars under what conditions. All right, joining me now to discuss all this is Michael Weiner. Welcome. Thanks for being back with us tonight. I know we've had you on already this week, but these stories are so big, they're worth having you back on again. Respond to these 2 big stories tonight, please.
Right, as you know, I literally called over to you about 4:30 in the morning my time to tell you about this. What's really interesting to all the people out there is, again, we predicted this. We predicted this a year ago, and here it is. How come they do it Friday morning on a summer weekend and just slip it through? Who knew about it? They did. All of these people, including your geniuses in New York, they all knew about it. Did they tell anybody? No. This is a major move. It's step 1 in the process of becoming digital. It's the beginning of it. Warsh knows about it. They're all in on it. And this is a point of time for people to get off the seat and get on their feet and do something about it. That's what we do every week. I can tell you what's concerning about it is the people that are involved. Visa, MasterCard, Amex, you all have them in your wallets, most of you. And they're all involved. It's all about control, ladies and gentlemen. It's all about control. Who knew? When did they know? They didn't just come up with this morning. Did anybody on these genius shows that you turn on in the morning that your financial person might tell, oh, watch this one, watch this guy, watch this guy. Anybody tell you this 3 weeks ago or 3 months ago other than Brandon and I? Nobody did, but here we are today, and bingo, it's in, it's done. And what also happened, and I hate to say it, is Trump indirectly is involved, because guess what's way up today? The crypto market. It's way up. They are getting ready. It's a process we're going in. You've got months literally to process and get protected, because if you don't, the revaluation will happen. And in 33, as I said, nobody knew what was going to happen. August 20th, 1971, they took us off the gold standard. Nobody knew what was going to happen except the people who were pulling the strings. And in 2008, when the collapse happened, we knew it. Everybody else did not know it and did not do anything about it. They let it happen, like we talked about on the show earlier this week, that they allow it to happen and you just have to live with it. Well, here, ladies and gentlemen, we say it all the time. that they allow it to happen and you don't have anything to do. And here we are tonight. They allowed it to happen. You don't have anything to do about it. You're stuck. There's nothing you can do.
Now, when you mention Trump and cryptocurrencies being up, are you referring to his cryptocurrency? What is his called?
Oh, absolutely.
Is that USD1? Is that what his is called?
He calls it the Trump coin, but yes, he actually came out. Remember, there's a whole thing on the news where he said he's up $1.5 billion.
Well, I'm looking right here. I just asked Grok, 500 to 800 million. 500 from the disclosure, 500, 800 million plus from World Liberty Financial, crypto platform co-founded with his sons and others,
35,
including token sales and governance tokens. 600 to 635 million from sales of Trump-branded meme coins, known as the CIC Digital LLC or similar, launched around the inauguration. Total crypto reports consistently cite at least 1.4 billion. Some say 1.2 billion, depending on exact allocations and family splits. This was the dominant source of his overall 2.2 billion plus reported income for 2025, up sharply from prior years. I guess it's a club and we're not members, right, Mike?
No, we're not members. We're just trying to help our people out there to get protected while they can. Because this is step one. It might be 10 steps, it might be 2 steps, it might be 8 steps. But, we tell people all the time, just like I talked about it previously about the Jews in Germany, and everybody kept warning this was going to happen, and nobody believed it until it did.
Yeah.
Well, if anything is an example, Brandon, it's today. We warned people for 10 months ago, 12 months ago, when stable coins passed. I said on the show in July when it passed that this is the first step, not officially, and here we are officially at the first step. And I guess my comment is, did anybody tell you? Well, I'm sure your financial people are, it's no big deal. Don't worry about it. It's no big deal. Really? Seriously? It's no big deal.
So tell me what this stable coin issuer circle, what does this mean? It says that it surged after the U.S. Office of Comptroller of the Currency granted it approval to operate as a trust bank. The approval gives the company the ability to directly manage reserves for its regulated stablecoins, primarily United States DC stablecoin. The news reflects a broader trend in crypto industry where companies are trying to make a big shift from being financial applications to financial infrastructure. Okay, break it down in layman terms. What does this mean for the average person?
The simplest statement is all the people all these companies that you hear about who offer cryptocurrencies are now being given the opportunity to have their own little crypto bank. You see a little sign on the top of a building, crypto bank, and that's exactly what this is, the beginning of digital banking. And what Jamie Dimon is furious about is they don't have the restraints on them and the reporting controls that the commercial banks do. So therein is a huge rift that's going to be going on while all this is becoming final. This is not final yet. It's just the beginning of approvals, and it's not a game. I guess my concern is that people are being asleep at the wheel, and they just think that we're just being alarmists and worry. I'm not an alarmist. This is exactly what happened today.
Yeah, well, look at the bottom line I wrote in my article. Money is going digital, and it's happening faster than most people realize. This is not science fiction, and it's not years away. The largest financial companies in the world just planted their flags, and the government is writing the rules right now. You do not need to panic, and you do not need to rush into anything, but you need to understand what's coming, because the dollar in your pocket is being reinvented, and for the first time in a long time, it's worth paying attention to who is holding the pen. By the way, these, as I write in the article, the FDIC doesn't back these coins. So what happens if some of these companies go belly up? People are going to lose their life savings or a percentage thereof?
Well, yeah, it's a good question. The interesting thing is nobody's answered it yet. So I guess the initial answer is bye. I mean, even if they do back it and if they do come up with something, they're going to have to come up with a whole new system to do that. I would venture to say they might, but in the interim, we don't even have enough money to back up the FDIC, yet we're coming up with another banking type program that we might have to back. And the question becomes, can they do it all? No. That's the beginning of digital banking. One will disappear. That's what Jamie Dimon is worried about. He's worried about being taken out of the game. He's worried about the ultimate end of the FDIC in reflection of the crypto people and the digital people who legitimately are not even close to the same ethical. These people, by the way, none of these people in the crypto industry are licensed and backed like the people in banking and securities, where they have to go through a securities background check. They have to take a license and examination. There's none of that. They don't have that. Right now, all these guys that own crypto firms can come directly out of Lewisburg. Okay, that's a prison if anybody doesn't know. So, reality is, you don't know. When I became a broker, I had to take a Series 7, a Series 3 securities law for the state. And as an owner, I had to take a principals law examination. I had to have my background check done repetitively. I mean, these people have had nothing done yet. Yep. It's shocking. Yep. It's really shocking.
Now, I made some graphics.
By the way, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. My question is how Donald Trump is actually a convicted felon. How is he owning part of a bank? Interesting.
And you're not saying that as a person that hates Trump. You're just saying
I'm not being a smart against Trump. I'm just saying there is a pure example that they don't have any vetting. And I'm not saying Trump doesn't deserve to be an owner of a bank. I'm just saying normally in order to be one, you have to have a clean background. You can't have a criminal history. That's a fact.
Yeah. And of course, he was wrongly convicted, I believe.
I agree with that. I don't agree with what happened with him. I'm just saying that's an example of lack of vetting.
And so we're going to find her. In other words, it's going to be another financial crisis where we give people houses with no money down, zero interest, and then the whole thing pops. This is going to end up being a big pop too, right? And people go, how did this happen? And you're going to find out that everybody that was involved, or I should say a lot of the people that were involved, they will have made their money and put it off to somewhere else. When it crashes, they will have taken the money, cashed in their coins or whatever they got from, the money they did get from people to sell them these coins. I think a lot of those folks will have diversified into something else. That's how it works. Isn't that how the game works?
Yeah, they're going to force the issue. They're all going to make a ton of money. Like the people in 2008, the people at the top all got richer. Everybody else lost a ton of money. If you're sitting on gold, if you were sitting on gold in 2008, you came out smelling like a rose.
Well, let's talk about that, because I was talking to a family member this week, and they mentioned that a family member left another family member $20,000 in 1963. And I thought, I wonder what $20,000 would buy in 1963. Well, I kind of knew, because I knew what houses were going for then. So I thought basically that's a nice new 3-bedroom, middle class brick home in the Mid-South, $20,000. So I kind of knew, but I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. Let's go do a little bit on that. So I did a little research and I built some graphics. Take a look at this, Michael. These are graphics custom built by us. The decline of the dollar and the purchasing power versus then versus now. Look at this. With $20,000 in 1963, today, to have the equivalent in what it would buy, you would need $215,825. So just think about the fact that you could buy a house for $20,000 in 1963 here in the Mid-South. Now today, it's $215,000 for that same. And by the way, you could buy a house here for that, but more average house here in the Mid-South in East Memphis would be about $275, $285 to $325, depending on what you're talking about. But to buy the product that you would buy in $20,000 of 1963, you'd have to today spend $215,000 to buy those same products. Now, that means the U.S. dollar since 1963 has lost 90% of its purchasing power. Okay? And then for other people in other parts of the country, that's gotten worse because of the cost of living, based on whether it's New York or Seattle, et cetera. Take a look at this. The decline of the U.S. dollar, what 20,000 in those years would be worth in 2026, okay, based on Consumer Price Index. 1970, A dollar in 1970 is the equivalent to $8.64 today. Okay, prices are about 8.64 times higher as in the 1970. 1976, a dollar in 1976, today it takes $5.69 to buy what you could buy for a dollar. And we keep going on down the line. So the power of gold. Now check this out. In 1963, the gold had fixed the price at $35. Now you could not legally buy gold in America in 1963. The law didn't change until December 31st, 1974. Okay. But in 1963, $35 was the price of gold set by the government. Now, if you could buy it, but you couldn't until December 31st, 1974. But if you could, or you bought it from a family member, or a family member gave you $20,000 in gold that they didn't turn into the government when FDR confiscated it and they kept it, which is how we have some of the numismatic we do, because people said, kick sand, kick rocks, buddy boy, I'm keeping it. So let's say that you got from a relative $20,000 in gold in 1963 at $35 an ounce. You would have today, that $20,000 today, look at this, folks, would be worth $2,354,000. $20,000 in gold in 1963 today would be worth $2,354,000. If in let's go to the 76, because by then you could buy it. So the windows opened up, the law changed December 31st, 1974. So by 76, you go out and buy it. So someone that said in 1976, I'm going to put $20,000 into gold. Well, that'd be $125.32 an ounce. Today, you'd have $657,500. In 1980, the gold price really spiked, as you guys all remember, along with silver. And let's say you even bought it at the high of $612.56, but you said, I'm going to put $20,000 into gold in 1980. Today, that would be worth $134,512. If you put 20,000 in 1990, 20,000, that's $384 an ounce. Today be $214,100. 2026, there's the price. So think about that. The power of gold. It's not that gold's going up, it's the dollar's going down. Now here's the timeline. April 5th, 1933, FDR, through an executive order, Americans had to surrender their gold. A lot of them said kick rocks. January 30th, 1934, Congress passed the Gold Reserve Act. Then the government raised the price of the gold from $20.67 an ounce to $35 per ounce. Nixon closes the gold window August 15th, 1971. And then Ford, he signed a legislation restoring the right of Americans to buy gold again, December 31st, 1974. What if you invested $20,000 in gold on December 31st, 1974? Okay? If you did that, your investment today would be worth, what is that, $441,000? Gold closed in 1974 at $186.50. $20,000 put into that then. Today, it would be worth $441,000. What am I trying to show you here? What's happening to the dollar? Why are they doing the things that they're talking about doing? Because of the fact they know the dollar's dying. Okay?
Well, they also do it because they know that the fact that we're also doing it because gold is a store of wealth.
Yeah.
And it just shows consistently. That's why the founders put us under gold. And, for the people who get nervous on prices, when you read the price that day in 1974 at 186, and unfortunately I was there live, not Memorex, understand the fact that by 1978, it had gone down at one point to $88, then to $128, but then it went up to $800. So you don't get nervous. On a long-term asset preservation situation, you take advantage of pricing. Right now, gold's a bargain. It's like a supermarket sweep time to jump in and protect yourself. But when you see what has gone on today and the lack of transparency to the American people again, we're just nothing more than puppets. We just, okay, you're going to do that. Okay, fine. That's good. Or you find the fraud for us that you sent money out all over the place, and now we're finding out there's billions of dollars of money that's stolen. But then that's okay. We got to pay for it. It's not okay. That's why we keep talking about protection, security, and balance. And right now, this is the biggest financial actually comeuppance that I have seen, and I believe has happened since the inception of our currency. And I'm not talking 1933. Let's go back to the 1790s. This is structuring a new financial world in America, and the people on the top are going to make a fortune. And us little people, they don't care if we win or lose. They just care that we're there.
Well, and
That's
what
all.
I'm trying to say tonight is, again, I don't give financial advice. I give financial opinion. That's my disclaimer. But if you're holding hard assets, you're gonna make it through and have some of the wealth you've worked your whole life for. Others that don't understand this, they're going to lose everything. Okay, it's going to be inflated away. Let me show you a graphic. I made another graphic. I did a side-by-side comparison. So you got gold. If you put $20,000 in gold in 1963, we already said that, today it would be worth $2.3 million. Okay, but what if you put $20,000 in a rental property? Let's say you bought a house in 1963 in say East Memphis for $20,000. And that's about what they look like in East Memphis, by the way. Beautiful brick, 3-bedroom, whatever. And you could have gotten that for about $20,000 in 1963. Now, if you had rented that out, today I went and I used a program and I said, figure out what average rent was in the Mid-South from 1963. And it was about $180 a month in 1963. So you're about $2,000 a year in profit in 1963 from a house you bought for cash, 20 grand, you rent out. And I asked this program, all right, figure out what rent would be from 1963 all the way forward today, rent being about $2,000 a month on a 3-bedroom in a nice neighborhood in East Memphis. So what would you make on that house? You got the appreciation of the house, because we know that these homes now are going for about $285 to $325, and you would have paid $20,000 for it. So you have the appreciation of that hard asset. Not really the appreciation of the house, it's the decline of the dollar. But then you add in the income that it provides, and that's the difference between gold and let's say a hard asset of a rental property. You got cash flow. But I think these are both great ideas of hard assets for a diversified portfolio. So the bottom line is, if you took the $20,000 in 63 and put it in gold, you'd have $2.3 million worth of gold today. If you bought a house in East Memphis for $20,000 cash, today that house would have in value and in rent would have brought you about $700,000 to $900,000 in income, gross income. So what would happen if you just still had that $20,000 in the bank, right? What we're trying to show you again is where this is going. Paper dollars can be printed. Gold cannot be printed. Real estate is finite. Real assets are insurance. It's wealth protection. And folks that don't get this, this is why they will have nothing. The folks that understand hard assets, it is a wealth preservation. Okay, you agree with this, Michael?
Absolutely. Well, I preach it every single day. And what scares me really out of all of this is that sincerely, we deal with people and our clients, like I'll call clients up and some of them know it right now, not to sit back and tell them to get anything, but just to bring them up to speed on what is going on and share thoughts with them to make sure they know about it. And they get worried about that they're going to get caught last minute. And I don't think there's one of our clients that we work with, and Chris and I, that doesn't know and feel comfortable at this point that we won't wait till the last minute to warn them. What bothers me is when people tell me that somebody's telling them, well, that doesn't make sense. Well, listen, explain to me or have somebody explain to you and I want, and literally, if they're dumb enough to tell you this and they're in the securities business, be interesting that digital pay changeover in the currency market will not affect you. And if they say it will not, make sure you tape that so you can use it in court later. Because they're not going to answer it. If they're smart, they won't answer it. Because anybody who is involved in financial services, and most of them don't know, understand the fact when you're changing and restructuring currency, that has an effect on your bottom line. And don't believe it won't. We're just sitting here right now at the precipice. We're at the birth of the baby right now. Just started today, and now it's going to start growing. And you have an opportunity before it starts walking and talking to sit back and simply put, do an evaluation and protect yourself. And those people in retirement plans, you are the first to go. They know exactly where you are, so they're going to deal with the low-hanging fruit initially. And if you're not secure, like Reagan came up with precious metal IRA as part of your program, you are going to take a hit that you will not recover from. Devaluation, you do not get the money back, period. You either earn it back by investing or it's just gone. That's all, gone.
That's all. So it's a big day, big historic day, sadly, in many regards, as again, stablecoin issuer Circle just got the green light to operate as a bank. That, and then we found out from our Worldview Report article about 140 companies that have now just decided to jump in together and get behind the Open USD, major companies. The landscape is changing. But again, Michael, if you went out on the street, asked the average middle-class person today about these stories, they wouldn't have a clue about them, would they? They would not realize what's coming. But that's why this audience is so, well, I have an affluent audience, to be honest with you. Our audience here is very affluent. We learned this over the years from getting to know some of you, the businesses you run. Some of you guys have some very big companies you run, very, very big companies. Others of you have service-oriented businesses, roofers, plumbers, HVAC, and you've done very, very well. You've worked incredibly hard, but some of you have really done well. We tend to have an affluent audience because educated people tend to be affluent, right? Readers are leaders. People that are educated tend to be also good at managing money because they're educated people and they're wise. And I do have an older audience, 55 and older is my biggest demographic. And so we have a lot of financially well-off people in our listening and viewing audience. And what I'm saying tonight, most of you know. Most of our audience knows this. But the average American on the street doesn't know what we're talking about. And this is why they will be wiped out. Michael, without giving any information, can you back up what I'm saying? I mean, you've been working with our audience for 18 years. Many of them are very, very well off. They're very financially successful. They've worked hard. They didn't get it by most of them at all from anything other than their own hard work and God's blessing. They didn't inherit it. They weren't born with a silver spoon in their mouth. Many of them came up just starting out in a service-oriented business or other things and just were conservatives. They conserved their money. They understood what we're talking about tonight, long term, what is real wealth and how to protect it and gain it. Can you speak to that in your experience?
Absolutely. Most of the people are very astute. Some of the people always knew in their gut that this was going on, and then what happened, it validated it literally in their mind. And they understood that realistically, sometime when your gut speaks to you, it's really the smartest move you can make because it's a common sense. When they say gut, my gut speaks to me, it's more like your common sense is saying it's like a red flag going off in your mind. And the only things that I get that stop people sometime is they go to somebody, and I'm not going to say it's their financial person or somebody, it's, that's all ridiculous stuff. And then as the years progress, we prove to be more right and more right and more right. And I keep saying to these same people, this is your money. It is nobody else's money. You win, you lose, not me. And the people that we deal with from Worldview are very open-minded. And after a while, they don't even want to listen to the regular news because they find that they know when we tell them something, it is the truth. And I go back today to legitimately all of this major stuff going on. And I say it all the time. Where were all the geniuses? They're on it Monday through Friday, Monday, even on the weekends now with their financial shows. Anybody tell you about this? No. Anybody warn you about this? No. Will they warn you about this? No, because it goes against the system. The system perpetuates them. We don't have a system here. We just have the truth. And right now, I take pleasure in the 46 years I've been in the gold industry, not 4,600, Brandon. And at the end of the day, I can honestly say it's been a pleasure. It's really been a pleasure. I have seen literally the bloodstained stairs and floors of people who, as a judge once told people when I was sitting in court who lost money, he said a very simple statement: you played and you paid. And it goes back to the fact that your money, and when you're over 60 years of age, you shouldn't be playing anymore. You should be planning more. And that's what we try to do. We try to be that little anchor, that little red caboose at the end of that train. And right now, you better make sure that caboose is solid and stable for you, because what they got coming upon us right now is something that I, as I said, I believe it's the biggest thing since 1790s when we created our financial system, a rebirth of it without any controls, literally.
Well, there you go. And of course, if you want to get the free packet, no obligation risk, no obligation free packet from Swiss America. I've been working with them for 18 years. You can do that by going to worldviewgold.com. Do your own due diligence. I don't give financial advice. I give financial opinion. Do your own due diligence. Worldviewgold.com or 1-877-864-1072. 1-877-864-1072. Hard assets, folks, if you want to weather what's coming. And I would, again, remind you about the Depository Trust Corporation. You're not really the owner. You may say so in one sense of paper, a beneficiary. You have the benefactor or beneficiary of it, but you're not the owner. You don't have access to it. They can shut you down. And as they go in more and more to digital, as we're talking about, that's the whole point. You will be locked out. You can be shut down. You could be debanked. And I'm just simply, again, giving you my opinion, which is take some of these assets you've worked so hard for off the table and put them 100% in your control. Closing comment, Michael?
Absolutely right. We're here to, Brandon is for 18 years, and I've known him, has one concern, is making sure that his people, the members of Worldview, are informed and protected. There's not a lot of people that do that out there. And that's why I even say to people right now that our clients, you've got to support Worldview Weekend. You got to support their foundation. You've got to back them up, because this information is not free and it costs a lot. And, this isn't some show where somebody's like getting a gazillion dollars for saying hello to you. This is something of legitimately supporting the truth. And I suggest that you pay attention to that. As far as with us with gold right now, the time right now, look, the market is lined up for you. It's at a very good buying opportunity. You've got the quiet before the storm. If you have a retirement plan, or if you have dollars that you need to protect, if you're a client or you're not a client, it's time to get proactive. I'm done.
That is Michael Weiner. 1-877-864-1072 or worldviewgold.com. As always, Michael, thanks for being with us. Have a great weekend.
I take care of Dolly. I don't want any games this weekend.
All right, guys, that's our broadcast for tonight. Hey, do me a favor. Go and join the vault right now. Remember, if you join the vault, you can start watching later tonight. Certainly by tomorrow morning, we'll have it loaded there. Part 3, Brainwashed America. Part 3, 2 hours long. And, of course, Part 1, Part 2 are there. Now Part 3, Part 4 coming soon, along with some other documentaries coming out. There's so much there. And, Lord willing, next week, we'll be launching our new online Bible and Biblical Worldview software that will allow you to search our library, including all these books. You'll be able to search every radio show, every TV show we've ever done, every documentary, all of our conference DVDs. You will be able to ask our Bible software research assistant a question, and it will answer it for you and then tell you exactly where it came from. It came from this radio show on this date, this day, this book, this documentary. It's all isolated and quarantined, so no woke ideology, cultural Marxism, and progressive ideas get in there. It's cost us about $100,000 over now about 13, 14 months to build this. We know a guy that told us who's in the IT world, who is the VP of IT for one of the biggest corporations in the world. He said, I know guys have spent $500,000 and it doesn't work. Well, we spent about $100,000, maybe a little more, and it absolutely works. We got a demo of it again 2 nights ago. It's gorgeous. We hope that we'll be launching it by next week. That will be part of your Vault membership. Of course, there'll be varying credits that you get for the month. You can't just sit there and search all day, because every time you search, it costs. It's because it's running these powerful computers. But you'll get a base. You will get a base membership to our Biblical Worldview Bible software program as a part of your Vault membership. Right, Logan? Why don't you jump on the mic? Tell them about it, because you saw it. I mean, you saw it being demoed.
Yeah, it looked really good. I think it's ready to go.
I think it is too. And tell them what it's going to do beyond what I've just said.
Just that it will answer your questions. It will lead you to the sources. Like each question we asked, it pulled up like 5 or 6 different sources. So it's not just pulling from one show. It was pulling from, 3 different shows, an ebook, an article. So it's pulling from multiple different pieces of content throughout the whole site.
Yep, sure is. And it's not just searching my stuff. It's searching everything all any of our hosts have ever done or any of our guests have said. It's searching all of that and then providing an answer. I don't think there's anything else like this. But then again, I don't know anyone that has built a network and has spent 36 years doing this with the guests that I've interviewed. I don't know anyone that's done that. There have been people who do some stuff similar to what we do, but to do it this long by God's grace, I'm not boasting. I'm just saying God's been great to us to let us do this and to know people like Dr. John Whitcomb, Dr. Rob Lindstedt, Dr. Andy Woods, and the John Ankerberg, Josh McDowell. I mean, it's crazy. Norm Geisler. It's crazy. Randy Alcorn, the people we have in our library that spoke for us or they were interviewed on my shows. And now we can use all of that to answer questions with this powerful Bible and Biblical Worldview software. So please consider joining. And you get bonuses like getting to watch some of our documentaries, brand new one now, Brainwashed America, Part 3. Worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault. So please go ahead and join. And my Revelation commentary will be in there. So very soon that'll be in there. So when you ask it a question, it's going to answer it out of that 2,100 pages, provide you the answer, and then I'll link back to where it came from, and then allow you to watch the whole show or listen to the entire radio show if you want. I was calculating up last night how many hours of radio and television I have done. Logan, I'm approaching now 7,000 hours in radio and television. 7,000 hours. And I mention all that because now those 7,000 hours, I can't find stuff I said. I asked Logan earlier today, Logan, find me where I played the clip of then state senator who became a U.S. congressman, Peter Hoagland, stating in the early 1980s, when it came to a debate about Christian education and parents sending their kids to a Christian school, this was in Nebraska, and this case was being watched by the whole nation. Because there was this pastor who had a church and a school, and this state senator said on audio, I don't think parents should have the right to send their kids to this school because it could make it difficult for these kids to live in an ever-increasing complicated world when they grow up. And I give the whole quote. That's kind of the paraphrase. And for years, no one could find it. It seemed like it got scrubbed, but it was the early 80s. Well, someone sent me a cassette copy of him saying it on a radio show. And I have it. I still have the cassette tape. Well, I played it on the air. I played it on the air for you guys not too long ago where we had found it in my attic and we put it in our archive. Logan, I said, Logan, I want to grab that audio clip. I want to have that in the new documentary. There's a spot where it'll fit perfectly. You know what he did? Used our system and found it. We can't find stuff. I have a hard time finding. I know we said something. I know we talked to someone who said something, but how do I search nearly approaching 7,000 hours of my own shows, much less all the other shows? Well, this Bible worldview software is so powerful. It'll blow your mind what it's allowing us to find in minutes. And you're going to have access to it. And it's going to be documented and footnoted where it came from, who said it, what was the date of the show, who was the guest. It's going to blow your mind. We saw it demoed the other day now. That's the third or fourth time we've seen it demoed for us. And we're thinking by next week we should be able to launch it, right, Logan? Is that a yes?
Yeah.
That's a yeah.
Monday, right?
I think so. I think Monday's the deal. So again, if you're part of the vault, you're going to get this automatically. You get a base introductory to the Bible software program, plus access to 36 years of radio shows, TV shows, ebooks, audiobooks, documentaries, conference DVDs, and so much more. So please go and join right now. It's a great way to resource yourself, have your own personal research assistant. We're calling it Worldviewpedia. Okay, Worldviewpedia. So Worldviewpedia will be part of the vault. This very, very powerful biblical worldview software and Bible program. It'll be a part of the vault at a base price. And if you use up a bunch of credits, then you'll have to. It'll tell you, okay, you've used up your credits for now. But we're going to give everybody an introductory membership at the base price. You know, that's the way it is with these programs. They're so powerful. When we use some of these programs that we use out there, the more we use them, we finally use up the credits and we have to wait or we have to buy more credits. So that's just the way it is because it costs money to run these humongous servers. Now, our servers are quarantined, as I said. They're isolated, so nothing is getting into them. Not to mention we spent $100,000 building this system. This is all proprietary software, by the way. We own it. It's proprietary software. So again, that's why we've got to put it where it'll be a base price, a base membership. When you get the vault, a base membership. Because again, if you just sit there see, there was a company, Logan, you were telling me about where their employees were using it and ended up spending, what was the number? $500 million?
Yeah, in 1 month.
In 1 month, $500 million. So it takes money to run all these servers. Believe you me, don't I know from the bills we see. So again, but we want to give everybody that's a Vault member at least the introductory to have so many credits to use our brand new Worldview Bible software program coming out next week. So there you go. Roll the music. Let's call it a night. Now, Lord willing, I'll be back this Sunday night. I'll be back this Sunday night, Daniel chapter 7, as I continue teaching through the book of Daniel. Daniel chapter 7, verse 1. So join me right here, if you would, please, at Worldview Tube on Sunday night. 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern Standard. Should we go to a shot of the Dolly Cam? Will the Dolly Cam work at this very last moment? Let's get a shot of Dolly, because I'm about to say to Dolly, I'm about to say as he moves the camera, the robotic camera, let's see. There she is. That's our broadcast tonight. Thanks for tuning in. May God save America. Take care. Yeah, she's ready.
Spiritual values, moral issues, government,